Hey guys, it's Matt. The title of this video, something along the lines of Potter's Hairy Defense Against the Dark Farts class. It's not clickbait. It is not clickbait because in this presentation, me and my alter Britney Spears, will provide examples of how the Notnilc Defense Against the Dark Arts, which was Voldemort in this series, that represents the Notnilc system in our series, in our real life. So we have examples. What? No, Matt has examples. Britney Spears is not here today. Matt has examples of how the Notnilc does business, and the Notnilc being our own Voldemort, in three major areas. One, we've talked about tons of times, so we'll be very brief, move on to the other areas. The examples are in other areas. Number one, to destroy things that were once good. We've been over that a million times recently. That's the most fascinating topic, but we can't do it every time. The second, to confuse, of course. I don't know what else to label the category. But three, to create controversy where there is none. This is the most fascinating part of this presentation, and what we'll look at today more than the other two, how our Voldemort does this. It loves to create controversy where there is none. And regarding the title again, Dark Farts, we study how it does business, then we do our own spell, if you will, and we make fun of it. We don't worry about it and build bunkers, we make fun of it. And I wanted to show a picture of this scene in Harry Potter. I've talked about a million times the defense against the dark arts, the ridiculous spell. And if you're not familiar with the scene, I'm sure if you just put in Defense Against the Dark Arts Ridiculous Spell YouTube, the scene will come right up. It's probably the biggest truth drop in the entire Harry Potter series, of which there's 5 or 10 massive truth drops. So check the scene out if you're not familiar with it, but I'll just describe it quickly again before we start. And of course I will comment on this famous actor. I don't know his name, but he plays Snape, wearing a dress. This is his opportunity to be humiliated, like every other male actor, to wear a dress. Forgot about this, pulled it up, first thing in my face, Snape in a dress. We'll talk about that in just a second before we get started. But it's very quickly, the boggart will know your worst fear. It will morph into your worst fear, and you have to transmute it through the way it's presented in Harry Potter, a casting of a spell. This is a truth drop. We all have the ability to do it on our own. We're all magical beings without having to study tomes and texts and books with weird symbols all over them. The worst fear comes out, you transmute it, change it into something ridiculous. We all have the power to do this. So when Ron Weasley approaches the cupboard or the wardrobe, the scariest thing in the world to him is Professor Snape. Doors open and it's like a nasty Snape, dark eyes. He casts the ridiculous spell and transforms Snape into the funniest thing he can imagine. All of a sudden, Snape's in a dress. The entire class laughs. Good example for ourselves is, what have we done to Bill? We've turned Bill into Melvin P. Gates. And even worse, into a ridiculous comic book character that says, "Hey, Bezzo, how are we going to screw these people over this week, Bezzo?" That's basically what was done to Snape here. I guess I did already talk about Snape in a dress, so I'll just say this. The only actor that seems to be avoiding his fate in terms of wearing a dress, the one that's holding out, the holdout, is Denzel Washington. Even Tom Cruise calls the Japanese garb a dress in The Last Samurai. Here is Snape. Forgot about this one. Although the scene, if you want to say, you want to extend out what the point of wearing a dress is, the scene in where he's got the head of La Hermandad in Man on Fire bent over the car, and he says, the C4, that's what you got up your ass right now. That could be related, if you know what I mean. Like, how did it get there? Did he have to really do that to the guy? I mean, so, no, but Denzel, look, let's give credit where credit's due. Denzel so far has not shown up in a dress. Props to you, Denzel. Come on, sir. I'm a professional. I'm just a professional. I'm just a professional. I'm just a professional. I'm getting tired of hearing that. Like, these guys admitting that they professionally, it's their occupation to snatch little kids. That would make it better for them. Oh, it's not personal, Denzel. I'm a professional. I do this for a oh, you snatch kids up for a living? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me take off the bandage, the wraps and the ropes and the. Let me send you on your way. I didn't realize this was just your full-time job. You need to do this to put food on the table. Like, wouldn't it be better if he wasn't a professional and he just needed the money to get his great aunt a lung transplant? I mean, whatever. Okay, category one in Harry's Potter or Potter's Harry Defense Against the Dark Farts class. This is not a joke because when we recognize its tricks and its tactics, we then do have power at least to move past them or transmute them or what you would be done to a transurfing pendulum, move aside from them, at least for ourselves. But we need to be able to recognize them. So this is number one. Like I said, we've talked about it many times. Just one more minute, I will move on. But what the Notnilc does is it things were once very good. At some point, an idea was good, a movie was good, a sport was good, and then over time, it works to destroy what was once good. Anybody screaming out to me, Matt, you're using baseball as the example, the square and compass? Yeah, I'm aware of all that. It's not my first rodeo here. It doesn't matter. This is one of 1,000 things or 1,000,000 things it's out to destroy. Doesn't matter if it was the square and compass or how baseball at one point was very good and was very pure. The way my grandfather talks about in Philadelphia, Shibe Park, I guess became Connie Mack Stadium, going out for like $3 to get in. You see Willie Mays or Jackie Robinson or Mickey Mantle or not that old for Babe Ruth, but, going out and getting a hot dog for 50 cents and, the players were making, I don't know, 30-40% more than just some labor in Philadelphia. There weren't these ridiculous salaries. There was no technology. You could argue with the ump. Hey, ump! The way they yelled at the ump in Field of Dreams. It was a wonderful thing, I'm sure. And there's no reason to just because it may have come from the Notnilc, we have no reason to say it wasn't. It introduces beautiful things. It introduces purity. Maybe it can't do it itself. Maybe it needs real people to do it. Then it works to destroy. And it's not just movies and sports. How about the family unit? Families are now they live all apart from each other all over the country. They don't see each other. Everybody lives alone. All of this stuff, it's out to destroy, of course. So we know it does this. Let's move on. Nobody wants a little box while they're watching a baseball game. Nobody wants replay in football. Nobody wants the national championship game of the NCAA basketball 5 years ago to be determined by some super slow-mo replay because one guy's fingernail may have touched a basketball. Nobody wants it. If anything, people like to argue with the refs, yet it gives itself away because it keeps introducing this technology that nobody wants and nobody asked for. And all of society introduces a bunch of crap that nobody wants and nobody asks for. And in that, it gives itself away. Okay, those that still watch TV may have thought about this may have heard about this controversy about a month ago. I didn't know anything about it. Greg told me about it. Florida, it's Don't Say Gay, some law that says a teacher in kindergarten, first grade, second grade through third grade cannot talk or push sexuality, cannot mention certain topics relating sexual or I don't know, something, along these lines. I don't know the specifics of it, but it was morphed into hashtag, I'm sure, don't say gay or the teachers can't get into transgender issues for first, second, and third grade. And, okay, the conservatives, of course, or there's still a conservative faction that's probably even at this channel that still is holding on to first grade truth. They'll be like, what are you talking about, Matt? This is a gigantic, you're using this as an example. This is a gigantic win for conservatives. Oh, I'm sure I don't watch these shows. I haven't watched them for 7 or 8 years, but I'm sure Michael Savage and Hannity and Glenn Beck and all these people this was a huge win. And wasn't it great what this Governor DeSantis did? No, it's all a manipulation. A total conservative manipulation here. It's creating a problem where none existed. And it actually calls attention to the other side and actually creates the other side, backfiring on the conservatives. So those that watch Hannity, I'm sure, and like Greg describes his dad as just Fox News all the time, Fox News, Fox News, Fox News, every single, those people. I used to do that 10 or 12 years ago. I came through conservatism, and then all the ridiculous bang events were so absurd. Then I went through that phase and started to say, wait, no real world could be pulling this off all the time in all these different areas, and I evolved my understanding of things, so where I'm today. But the conservatives would say this is a huge win. This is a huge win because they're convinced. The point is they're convinced that there's just hundreds of thousands of these super left-wing teachers that are just dying to talk about masturbation and human sexuality and gay issues with their first and second graders and trans this and push them into questioning their gender. And you know what? Do these radical elements exist in education? Are there teachers that really want to talk to their first graders about questioning their gender and strange sexuality issues? Of course this exists. I'm not saying it doesn't, but the Notnilc is expert at the psychology of this. It presents these sorts of things, and the takeaway from conservative America and trickling down even to in the middle of the road America is that this is a huge issue, and there's just tens of thousands of teachers that just can't wait to talk to their first grader. It's a problem that's very small that the Notnilc presents is a huge problem that needs to be addressed, and it probably didn't need to be addressed. If it needed to be addressed, it could be addressed on a local situation. It didn't have to be a national theme here. It actually ends up calling attention to the other side. The people are becoming so normalized and habituated to the other side that the other side is becoming normalized. They're actually normalizing the behavior that it looks like they want to stop. Okay, of course, well, but Matt, all these radicals came out and they protested. Of course, they're always going to find the radical element to protest with their flags and this, and you should be able to talk to first graders about anything. But again, the point of this section is Notnilc tactics. Maybe you don't even agree with me 100% on this one, but a Notnilc tactic, I'll show you more examples, is to create controversy, create a problem where one didn't or doesn't exist. Or if one does exist like this, to magnify it. So, of course, it's like the Hegelian dialectic. Of course, but that's actually, we have to talk about that sometime, because the Hegelian dialectic that's problem, reaction, solution, and that's not what the Hegelian dialectic is. That's been adulterated into thesis and synthesis and all that. That's not problem, reaction, solution. But anyway, we'll talk about that some other time. We all know what I'm talking about if I just spout out, Hegelian dialectic like we've heard in like 4,000 truth channels. So we'll just keep with that terminology. So let me just go on to another example if you don't love this one. But trust me, guys, this is how it operates. It's just like, pepperoni, mushroom, gate, that thing. That actually, Matt, people got all over me because I was saying that was such bullcrap from day one. You know what that story did? By pushing that story, the pepperoni, gate, by people that pushed it out, like David Seaman, it actually protected those that do all the weird stuff or want to do weird and perverted and illegal things. It actually protected the whatos. It protected them. People at first were like, Matt, you're saying that the pepperoni gate is not what they say it is. Oh, you're protecting the sick. You're protecting those people. No, it was the opposite. If you believed in the tunnels were being dug between pizza places, if you believe, it actually ended up protecting the behavior. Okay, I'm not sure everybody can see this or if I'm not presenting it the right way. So let's move on to another example. Example number 2 of the system creating problems that don't exist at all or exist at a 1 out of 10, but the system will make it seem like it's a 9 or 10 out of 10 and needs to be addressed on a national level. Now, this has nothing to do with it, but I had to put this in as the first image. The end of Say. They're not. Are they be forming a pyramid as that van truck drives away with Michael Jackson in the middle? Of course. Who does that? They're driving away from Latoya. Remember, if you remember the Say, Say, Save, it was always strange and creepy to me, this video. Michael Jackson coveting his sister. It turned out to be his sister. They give her the flowers, and then at the end, this Mac and Jack vaudeville troupe or whatever, and they sell their snake oil. They drive away into the sunset, and Linda and Billy form this, Paul form this triangle. Who would do that? Who would do that? Really? Of course, it's the stuff. We're tired of it. Stop with the dumb symbolism all the time. Stop. Go bother someone else. Okay, guys, here's the video. I guess I could show you. If I hover over this, it'll move. It'll do still frames back to back so you can see some of the video. I guess they'll let me show this. If not, and you really want to see it, pause now and go look up Say, 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 Paul McCartney. And I'm not going to link to it. You'll find it and watch the video. It's strange. It's creepy. But I'll just show you this. Many of you may remember seeing it. Michael Jackson steps up in the beginning and drinks the tonic, and you have a fake thing here where he fakes the arm wrestling with this guy, and then they go on and do their vaudeville show. But what I'm talking about is basically the image that's up now, how they painted their face to present their vaudeville act. And let me just read the Wikipedia and just remember this image. I'll read the key sections from the Wikipedia on the Say, Say, Say video here in just a moment. It's better if you don't read ahead, assuming you can even see it. It's pretty small. But let me just say this briefly. During the Obama administration, Obama came in 2008. During that fake administration, I was coming to truth like we all were, but it kind of hit me I don't know what it was, 2009, 10, whenever it was, it kind of hit me that they can basically say and make up anything, just literally make things up, and people will believe it. It was during the Obama administration where I came to the conclusion that there doesn't even have to be a loose tie to reality. There doesn't even have to be any sort of connection. They can basically say anything, and they do. Just make it up. And that seems to be, in many cases, what the Notnilc does with things like this, whatever bot that helps people write the Wikipedia articles. It just makes shit up. Or even worse than that, if they actually did, you'll see how they may have implanted the possibility for this controversy way back when, hoping they could use the controversy later. I mean, that is, again, that's non-human evil genius. But no matter what, how far you want to take it, I don't mean to get too conspiratorial, but did I just say that? No matter how far you want to take it, you will see that they're just expert at creating problems and controversy across the board in millions of different places where there is no problem or controversy. So the themes, again, let me just, if you're familiar with the video, the first paragraph here is not as important as the second. I'll be very brief with the first. But it's just weird. It's just like making shit up. Okay. 2 authors later reviewed the short film. They're calling the Say, Say, Say music video a short film. 2 authors later reviewed it with 2 central themes. The first is a child-man theme. Again, if you remember Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney, the role of both a boy and an adult, which writer James Curtis states Jackson plays throughout the music video for Say, Say, Say. This relates to the last video where that guy just made a bunch of shit up about the Robert Frost poem. That's what the minions and the devices and bots of the system do. Just make a bunch of shit up to confuse and cause controversy. Let me just read the first paragraph. It makes no sense. Curtis writes that the bathroom scene involving the shaving foam is reminiscent of boys copying their fathers. What? He adds that the scene marks the distinction between Michael's role as a child and as a man. The writer also highlights the part where the singer supposedly becomes strengthened. Okay, forget the rest. It just makes no sense. The second paragraph is really what made me include it in this video. The second of the 2 main themes presented in the music video is of African American history and culture. What? As some of the vaudeville scenes in the short film acknowledge minstrel shows and blackface. What? They're genius at creating controversy and putting it into the minds when it doesn't exist. Or maybe maybe it did, and that's even more of an evil genius. So author W.T. Hammond, Who has a last name LH back to back? What is that? I'm gonna drop the L like the DJ, there's Django, the D silent. I'm just gonna drop just like Django said, the D is silent. I'm just gonna drop it. He writes that the video is set in the Great Depression and that McCartney and Jackson, quote, convey a compactly corrupt history of blackface. What? Go watch I'm not defending Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. I'm not defending it. Okay, but they don't convey a compactly corrupt history of blackface in the Say, Say, Say music video. As they con their way to riches with the Mac and Jack show, Hammond was critical of the pair and of the video because he felt that this African American theme had not been made explicitly known. It's a fucking music video. Is it the point? I'm not defending these two creeps, but let's just keep it in context. Is it the point of the music video to present the full dark history of minstrel shows and blackface? This is all bullshit. It's all made up. The author expressed his views that aspects of the short film video were historically out of sync. What? They were out of sync with interracial relations. It's not supposed to mimic exactly what interracial relations was like during the Depression, you goddamn son of a bitch. It's not supposed to be historical document on how blacks were treated during the Great Depression. It's a fucking music video. Say, say, say. It's not supposed to be historically accurate. With Space Jam, are you going to argue, is this same jerk going to argue that Space Jam didn't present Apollo 11 correctly? You know what I think of that? I have to do a sidebar every time. He stated that, quote, nearly everything in the video is backward. Nearly everything in the entire reality is backward, Jack. Mac, that's Paul McCartney in the Mac and Jack show, in the Mac and Jack fraudulent show where they peddle their fake snake oil in the beginning. Mac's white hand continually helping the black Jack or Michael Jackson on board the truck, for instance, reverses the general process I have shown of blacks providing whites with their sustaining gestures. What? You go back and watch the video, Michael Jackson just kind of jumps on the back of the truck. He's not helped into the truck by Billy. By Paul. Hammond added, quote, in a just world, Jackson should be pulling McCartney onto the wagon, not the other way around. How is even that doesn't make any sense. You could say, to be historically accurate, during the Depression, the black person would have been helping the white person. But he says, in a just world, Jackson should be pulling McCartney. No, isn't that the role you're trying to point out with minstrel shows? In a just world, each would help each other as equals. Okay, let's go full sci-fi novel. Take The Conspiracy to 10 out of 10, the volume on The Conspiracy, all the way to the top. What is the strangest thing we possibly could imagine or put forth as to what the system is trying to accomplish? And for anybody new, most of the time we go here, the Jedis and the old guard go, yeah, I could see the system doing that. It's not a big deal to them. Like, to anybody stumbling upon this video, what I'm about to present would be the strangest thing of all time. They would want to have me locked away. Book me into a room and lock me away, throw away the key. But the old guard and the Jedis hear this and they're like, yeah, that's what the system does, Matt. That's not really a big deal. So it's probably will happen the same way here. Where I'm going with this is there any chance they painted up Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson in such a way where it's right down the line, a Goldilocks, where if they needed to bring forth a blackface controversy later on, they could if they needed it? I mean, you want to talk about evil genius. It's not really right down the line, but that might be the intention in terms of what they did in 1983 with this video and then what that bot author presented in the Wikipedia. Okay, look, let's just go back to basics so this doesn't get too confusing. When you watched it in 1983, those that were alive, you know what we saw? We saw clowns. They pull the hankies out of the mouth. They change clothes. They put on the checkerboard floor suits, and then they change you other outfits. They have different acts, different outfits. We saw a clown presentation. Not one person, and I mean not one person, would have seen that video and said they're doing a blackface. No way. Now, if you go look at Al Jolson and look up blackface, the faces are jet black, the white person with the mouth highlighted. But this is just a gold. It's just enough with the way the mouth is done here. It's Goldilocks to a degree. And what I'm showing, even what I'm showing now, is it is closer to what someone would say blackface is or minstrel shows than if you just watch the video. What's being shown here is just 1 second. Most of it is up on stage. In no way do you see what these authors are trying to correlate with. You just see a vaudeville act or clowns, or you don't see it as prominently as it's even here. But the way they have the little tear under the eyes, which says clown, but they have the mouth. Okay, but see, look, no, but it's creating a controversy where there is none at the very minimum. The way whatever the bot tried to do at the end of the Wikipedia article, whether a real person wrote it or not. Of course, we all agree it's trying to create this controversy around black and white relations. Matt, it has to do this. Everywhere it can introduce this or insert this into this reality, it does. It probably has gone back over a million Wikipedia articles and say, is there an opportunity in this Wikipedia article to introduce racial conflict of some kind? And then it'll rewrite the Wikipedia to introduce the racial issue or the potential conflict amongst the races. That's probably what it did to the Say video. But in turning the potential conspiracy all the way to 10 out of 10, is there any way? And many of the old guard are like starting to shake their heads like, yeah, I could see that. Is there any way the way they paint it up, Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, there's a lot of different ways you can present a clown. You don't have to do it like this. And again, if the blackface guys is blackface, it's jet black face. This is not that. And the tears under the eyes, that presents or puts forth clown. Okay. But the way the mouth is done, oh boy, it is possible. If they need the controversy in the future, and maybe they'll use this in the future, our future now, maybe the end of the Wikipedia article is laying the grounds for this to be used. They are that evil genius in terms of the planning. Okay? No, but look, at the minimum, it's creating a controversy. The end of the Wikipedia article creates a controversy where there is none. There's not one person that watched that video that would have said they're not representing blacks of the Great Depression era properly, or are mocking blackface or minstrel shows. Not one person. They're not even painted with blackface. But this is how the evil genius of this Notnilc does business. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next category. Of course, please leave in the comments if you have more examples. We only probably have a few million of them where it tries to create a problem where one does not exist. Yeah, maybe 10 million examples, but if you have really good ones, please put it in the comments. This category I labeled to confuse, but it's much more sinister than that. We'll just keep it general to confuse. How many times does the Notnilc reality try to confuse the populace? We have maybe a billion examples of this, but this is one that came up that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. And you see the picture here of Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart doing Puppy Bowl. But the main theme is how Snoop Dogg and these other degenerate criminals they've been pushed to the top, lauded and applauded, and everybody, and they've turned into these sweet, lovable individuals. Everybody that ever had a first grader kid's birthday party would just love to have Snoop Dogg come by and say hi to the kids. And Snoop Dogg is now morphed into this lovable guy. I mean, how did this happen? How does this happen? And I need a better category title than just confusion, because that's pretty broad. I mean, the Notnilc does this a million times a day. And it's not just these rappers that were once so vile that are risen up into the mainstream and beloved today. I mean, they did it, or they've done it several times with Alec Baldwin. They destroy him or make him into a vile creature. He's calling his little girl, like on tape, of course. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's not a setup. A disgusting little pig or something. But then they bring him back. Then they take him down again. They haven't taken Snoop down. I mean, it was maybe he was so low to begin with that he was just allowed to rise up. But guys, Ice-T doing Cheerios commercials, and then you have LL Cool J. But look, this is the ultimate example, guys. Let me just get right to the point here. If you don't know how foul some of the lyrics were going back to the mid 90s or the early 90s. You have no idea. I mean, you have no idea when it says, I don't love you hoes, I'm out the door, and I'll be rolling in a gin and juice. That's nothing, okay? I can't say it. How foul. Talking about, I mean, I just, you have to trust me. It's so foul that in any normal world, there's no way he would be able to recover to a beloved character. Just not possible. Okay, you have the gang, even besides, let's just say he didn't have, and I'm saying one last time, guys, you have no idea how foul some of the lyrics are. Um, I'm not just talking about curses. I'm talking about sexual acts. And I'm okay. Now, then you have him as, of course, he's associated or he knows the Bloods and the Crips. Ice-T the same way. Ice-T, his story was he was a real gang person in L.A. and had ties to the Bloods or the Crips. And LL Cool J's stuff is not quite as foul and not it can be offensive, but he doesn't seem to have the gang ties that. So maybe him being on NCIS or whatever, maybe that makes more sense. But Snoop, I walk into the damn distributor to buy some beer. There's Snoop Dogg, a gigantic cardboard cutout pushing his Corona beer. He's everywhere. It's so unnatural. And I can hear all the first grade excuses coming, not really from people here at this channel, but in general, if I were to present this to any other group or even people in the mainstream or my cousins, they say, well, Snoop is loved, man. And these manufacturers, all they care about is profits. And they know he has that kind of a background. And after 20 years, they hope people have forgotten about it, but it's all about the bottom line and the almighty dollar, Matt. And he sells. And then, I'm sorry. It just doesn't, no. You have on Puppy Bowl, and they're presented together, in Doritos commercials and other places, but Puppy Bowl, I mean, this is for children, okay? I know a lot of adults switch over because they can't take that horrible lead up to the Super Bowl, whatever, and I was looking for Kitten Bowl and I found Puppy Bowl. You have two criminals, and you don't think this is the Notnilc out to intentionally confuse, intentionally demoralize, break people's spirit? You have two criminals. Okay, somebody's rising up, throwing the rubber ducky from their Tony Montana jacuzzi tub. Snoop was never convicted of anything. Well, he probably has been. I'm not. I didn't do a treatise on his record. Oh, and I know when he says murder was the case that they gave me. Murder was the case that they gave me. He didn't get the murder. I know he ain't exactly Suge Knight, but what? Okay. Even the way he talked, all the drug use, he's admitted to being a criminal. And, okay, whether he was convicted or not, and that you basically have two, one is the other, Martha Stewart, a convicted criminal. You have two criminals that are doing the child show Puppy Bowl. I mean, and you don't think this is not Nilc intention. I mean, the old guard sees it. Even if the people that chose Martha Stewart, and there's people like that dynamic, the Martha Stewart and the Snoop Dogg, totally different backgrounds. It's fascinating. The person that chose them to do Puppy Bowl, again, they were on the frequency. They're not in on anything. It just kind of happens this way. But it is demoralizing. You don't think parents show their kids Puppy Bowl on Super Bowl? What does that show you? Is the little kid going to be exactly fluent in what Martha did with insider stock trading and really understand that? No. But what if the little kid gets wind that she's a criminal and then he's a criminal? I mean, what's the message? I'm not saying it should be Jim Neighbors, one Puppy Bowl with, I'm trying to think of somebody else wholesome. I can't. Don Knotts, if he was still alive. Yeah, I can't. Nobody's wholesome anymore. But it's just a never-ending demoralization strategy. I have this general heading of confusion needs to change because there's 8,000 subheadings under confusion. But I think you guys basically understand what I'm saying here. I went over to Puppy Bowl. I was looking for Kitten Bowl. I don't think it exists anymore. And there's two criminals presenting. You got to laugh at it. Harry's Potter, Defense Against the Dark Farts. Most of you guys know this one, the controversy around the, quote, Christmas song, Baby, It's Cold Outside. Now, I love this one because, I don't love it, but it goes under confusion category, and it also goes under make a controversy where there is none category, and probably other categories. The Notnilc loves this one. Now, for any, let me just 30 seconds for anybody that doesn't know. It's not, it shouldn't even be a Christmas song because Christmas isn't mentioned, but it's played on radio stations or has been for 50 years on Christmas stations. You know, what do they start playing now? The day before Halloween. Baby, it's cold outside. I gotta go. No stay. They're turning it into some like sexual pressure, date rape scenario, and radio stations are stopped playing it. And the guys, the point, most of you know about this quote controversy. The point is, before I read the Wikipedia here, there are, it's mostly hip hop, 1,000 songs, and 100 of those extremely popular that crossed over into the top 40 or whatever, where you need so many bleeps, where it is so offensive, and what I talked about, the Snoop Dogg, that would make that even look tame. Just, just sexual acts. I mean, look, oh, here we go again. All of this exists, and it's just wonderful. Hip hop is just wonderful to the mainstream now. It was brought into the mainstream about 15 years ago when the Oscars gave an Academy Award to, it was Dolly Parton was up for the best song. I agree, it wasn't the most stellar year for music in movies. It wasn't exactly like something that Hans Zimmer just came up with, but it was I remember the lyrics because we used to make fun of it. This got an Oscar. It was I don't know the band. It's hard up here for a pimp when you're trying to get the money for the rent. You ain't knowing. I'm not joking. It's hard up here for a pimp when you're trying to get the money for the rent. You ain't knowing. That won an Oscar. So, okay, but and that's okay. That's not foul or anything, and maybe I strayed a little bit, but you know the foul crap I'm talking about. But let's talk. But baby, it's cold outside. That's really harmful, and all of society has to rally. Be consistent. If you're going to remove that, remove basically every rap song ever made. In 2018, I'm reading now. In 2018, the airing of the song was canceled. Baby, it's cold outside. Just stay here. Stay in with me. Oh, it's so horrible. And then the same people that went against this song, then they'll put on HBO and then complete orgy scenes, basically softcore porn on Showtime, HBO. They're okay with that. The airing of the song was canceled by a number of radio stations, including Canada's CBC streaming service, after social media criticism and public pressure regarding the song's lyrics. It was so horrible. On November 30th, 2018, Cleveland, Ohio radio station WDOK, Star 102, announced that, guys, if anything were real, one radio station should not exist today. They would all be under. But anyway, it announced that it had removed the song from its playlist due to its lyrical content. Oh, but then here's the new one from Snoop Dogg talking about this and that. Based on listener input amid the Me Too, oh no, the Me Too, the Me Too movement. On December 4th, 2018, the Canadian radio broadcaster Bell Media, CBC Radio, Rogers followed suit. The decision was blah, 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 blah. And then it says one radio station put it back on the playlist because people complained. Let's go to the last paragraph and be done with this nonsense. In 2019, vocalist John Legend and Kelly Clarkson also recorded the song with modified lyrics. Did anybody redo Gin and Juice with modified lyrics? I don't love you hoes. I'm out the dough, and I'll be rolling in the gin and juice. Natasha Rothwell for an expanded edition of Legend and Legendary Christmas, blah, 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 blah. Dean Martin had recorded a popular version of the song in 1959, criticized the new interpretation as absurd. Okay, enough's enough. It's simply the Notnilc working through its minions to create confusion and problems where there is no problem. The confusion in this case, we'll just keep this in the category of confusion. Confusion being to anybody unlike us that doesn't have themselves completely figured out. And it's not just conscious confusion, guys. This stuff plays on one's unconscious or subconscious or super conscious or whatever Freud term you want to use. It's unsettling to people. And they're not even aware of it. The Notnilc loves to play this game to unsettle people in thousands of different ways. They'll hear about the controversy about Baby, It's Cold Outside, yet they know what's on hip-hop just a few turns down the dial that, some of it on regular radio is still bleeped. It's not bleeped if you're streaming Spotify, or most people use that. They're not typically going to FM and AM anymore in 2022. So it is a conflict that plays on people's psyche that they're not even consciously aware of. This Notnilc, hey, boot at the gas pump, people. Boot at the gas pump, people, and guess a boot at the gas pump. Are you ever going to acknowledge the dark side, or just for us crazy people? So thanks for coming to class today, Ronald Weasel, Defense Against the Dark Farts. Thanks for being here, Potter's Harry. And also Hermione, next year, we want to tell everybody she'll be coming back as Herman. Hermione will be Herman. She made that change, that decision. Okay, so respect it. Okay, thanks for coming to class. Today we just looked at 3 different areas where the Notnilc is out to destroy the subconscious and unconscious minds of the populace. They destroy what was once good, and then we'll close with that. And I've talked about Star Wars, but not in this way. I'm going to point right to this one moment, right to this moment where I believe it was the beginning of the end, if anybody wants to stick with me. The second category was the Notnilc generally confuses, although again, need to do better there. There's 8,000 subcategories of that, and it creates controversy where there is none. The Notnilc is expert at creating controversy where there really is none. Mostly like race relations today, pretty much would have been all gone away by now. It keeps the fire stoked, and the left-wing crazies believe every time it's presented as a big problem on CNN, they believe the problem exists and that they'll look to government. They'll look to the gigantic Jabba the Hutt times a billion to fix it. I mean, is there anybody more lost in the history of the universe than a hardcore left-wing liberal? I'm not a big fan of Michael Savage, and all of those conservative hosts are role players for the Notnilc. But what he said is correct. He said liberalism is a mental disorder. Don't try to change these people. Don't try to figure it out. Just assume they're mentally ill, and it's the best you can do, because there is no other reason to dive into it further. It is a mental disorder. So going back to my favorite category of destroy all that was once good. Do a whole YouTube channel on these 3 categories and how the Notnilc plays its games. But what I point to regarding the destruction of Star Wars is the insertion of the CGI graphics when Star Wars, what I call the first 3, were re-released in, 96 or 97, whenever it was. They went back into the theaters, and we were promised 20, 5 to 15 second scenes where a CGI scene would be inserted because we were all excited for it. In 96, 97, they have access to these Cray supercomputers and CGI graphics that wasn't available in 1977. And this was the moment when they intended the takedown, or the start of the takedown of Star Wars. I personally am convinced of this. Again, it's my opinion, but let me try to make a case for it. Because it's like the Mandela effect, where people say whenever a Mandela effect shows up, it produces an inferior new reality or inferior reality, and the result today is worse than what, quote, it was. I don't think there's any scene that was inserted into the Star Wars where everybody was like, other than maybe the Cloud City pod flyer for 5 or 10 seconds, but most of them were horrible. They went back and inserted Han Solo in Star Wars 1 walking alongside Jabba. And, it just looks ridiculous. And we didn't have the same CGI standards as we do now, but it still looked bad. It didn't look that great even of what we expected it. But this, okay, we might disagree. This just takes the cake. I don't know how anybody could disagree with me on this one. I really don't. In number 3, the Return of the Jedi, right before Luke's in Jabba's palace or whatever, right before he kills the Rancor, or right after, there's this singing and dancing in Jabba's palace. And it is, most of you know the scene I'm talking about. Is it called, are they actually calling it Jedi Rocks? Or go look at it on YouTube, the singing and dancing in Jabba's palace, Jedi Rocks. From Return of the Jedi. It is the most cringeworthy, most horrible. It's embarrassing. It's hard for me. I have such a love of the first 3 originally from 77 to 82. It's hard for me to watch. I skip through it. The point is, it's so bad, it's so cringeworthy, there's no possible way George Lucas would have allowed that in and said, oh, that's wonderful. Somebody might have come up with that. And if anything were real, George Lucas, who completely controlled Star Wars, they tell us in 96, 97, would have said, that's awful. Not only is that not going into Return of the Jedi, you sir are fired, or you ma'am are fired, and hopefully you'll never work again. There's an opportunity at Carl's Jr. down the street. It's so bad he would have never put it in, never. And this then has to be the beginning of the takedown of Star Wars. Again, guys, I don't know. 20% of you might not know this singing and dancing scene. It's horrible. And if anybody says, "Oh, it's trying to appeal to kids," and it just would never, it would have never made it in. And again, most of those scenes where the CGI was put in are bad. And this means to me, this means they knew in '96 that it would be taken out. And if anybody's screaming at me throwing a rubber ducky, that the plans go a lot longer than that, and they knew before they even started filming the first scene in A New Hope that it would be taken out. I hear you. That is how they do business. And then you have many things you could point to as the overtime 20-year takedown of Star Wars. How the bar scene with Greedo and Han evolved. I think it evolved 3 or 4 times. The original is actually still on YouTube, where Han shot first. The original is still there. I don't know how they're allowing it to be there, but it morphed into them shooting at the same time. And then the new one, if you watch it on Disney Plus now, they show Greedo trying to shoot first, and Han, of course, he's just defending himself. And then Greedo, well, okay, if you're going to show, if it's so important to show that moral lesson that Han is just defending himself, then what gives it away as being destroyed on purpose is they change the dialogue. They have Guido screaming out like McGlinchey or something, McGlinky. Like just before he gets the shot off and he gets one in the chest, the phaser in the chest, he's like, McGlinky, McGlinchy. Like, what's the point of that other than to ruin it? What's the point of this ridiculous dance scene I'm showing other than to ruin it? So to me, you could argue they knew that would be ruined even before they even came out with it. And the whole thing, it does seem like just I don't believe the script. I don't mean the Star Wars script as laid down on paper. The whole script of what happened, what George Lucas was into after American Graffiti. The documentary on Star Wars, I don't buy it. It's 2 hours or 3 hours long. Oh, there's 10 times they almost lost funding, and then this was horrible, and then this almost didn't come through, and then the MGM executives almost shut it down. I don't buy any of that for 1 second. Star Wars, the way that Notnilc does business, was always meant to be. It was always meant to carry the incredible messages that it carries, and then they were meant to be destroyed. All that bullcrap. Maybe they did when they went to film The Hoth Planet and they went off to Norway or wherever they went, and maybe they did get snowed in and had some problems, and maybe that part is true. But that documentary, many of you know what I'm talking about, how many times they were almost shut down, how many times George couldn't get the funding, how many times they were over budget. I mean, it's bull crap. Then this is a major Notnilc presentation, and there wasn't anything that wasn't going to see it through. Even if the executives weren't all aware and in on it, they served the downloaded ones and the script writers and those on the frequency serve that my belief on this. In some way, they serve what I call the screen, with most of them not even being aware of it. Many people have not many people, but some people have talked to me or emailed me and said, Matt, the way you talk about Obama or George W. Bush and that not even being the same entity as you are, a totally different incarnation, they're not aware of some of the things that their role or some of the things we're aware of. Now, I'm not saying none of them are aware. I think there are people you can't point to that are above Dick Cheney, people you'll never see on the news. No, somebody will never present themselves as celebrity. If they present their face on TV like Melvin P., then you know that's not a real decision maker. That's a role player or an actor. Those in the shadows, that somehow in a different way interact with the screen or the dark element that's here. I think they know more than me, of course. But I'm saying the role players, these idiots, the Barack Obamas of the world, they don't know as much as we would think they do. They just don't. They carry out their role pretty in the dark. That's my opinion. Thanks for listening, guys.